Rise up!
This is the Rise Up See Red podcast, all about the Arizona Cardinals and the NFL, featuring insider and outsider perspectives. Enjoy the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Now here are your hosts, Jess Root and Seth Cox.
Hello, Arizona Cardinals fans, and welcome to the latest edition of the Rise Up Secret Podcast, the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. I'm your host, Jess Root, from CardsWire.com, USA Today's NFL Wire site that covers your Arizona Cardinals. On the line with me is my co-host, Seth Cox, from RevengeOfTheBirds.com, SB Nation's Arizona Cardinals site, as we record episode 728. It is our Week 15. It's our Cardinals-Texans preview, picks, and predictions. The Cardinals, who are 3-10, have lost 5 straight and 10 of their last 11 games, and seem to be getting progressively worse. Going up against a team that is red hot, has won 5 games in a row. They have not allowed 20 points in their last 4 games or in 6 of their last 7. They are the number 1 defense in the NFL in terms of points allowed, yards allowed, first downs allowed. They're number 3 against the pass. They're number 5 against the rush. And they have elite pass rushers. Yeah, and the Cardinals, this is an awful game if you want the Cardinals to win. This is a game we wonder if people will survive.
Yeah, this is probably the worst matchup of the season in terms of just matchup on paper. I mean, could it be as bad as the Seattle game? Probably not in terms of like first 16 minutes. First half.
But it could.
Well, I don't know if their offense is good enough. It's not bad by any stretch of the imagination, but
defensive score.
Yeah, they definitely are going to score or force a score on defense. They're just elite defensively. You brought it up. I mean, their pass rush, Daniel Hunter has 11 sacks. Will Anderson has 10.5. You look at it from that perspective, and then they have, some very talented linebackers, Azeez Al-Shaair and Henry To'oTo'o. But Al-Shaair is also potentially the dirtiest player in football. So that's obviously a huge issue. Kamari Lassiter and Derek Stingley are probably the best young corner duo in the NFL, because Stingley might be, top 3 in the NFL. Jalen Petrie has morphed into an absolute terror on the back end at safety. Really turned into a special player, both against the run, but also he's become such a weapon against the past 9 passes defense, which is a career high, 4 interceptions, which is 1 off his career high, and that's in 10 games played, Jess. I mean, he hasn't even played in every game, and he's doing all of that. So you look at that defense, Jess, and it is the elite of the elite. And, it's always interesting when people talk about decisions and what the Cardinals have done. And we go back to Monty's first draft, and people, want to say, oh, they should have stuck and picked Will Anderson. And by the way, that would not have been a bad pick. I don't think there was any situation in which Anderson Jr. failed as a player. But this is one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. And if you take off the one guy that's a Pro Bowl level talent in Paris Johnson Jr., how much worse is it? And I know people will be like, well, you would have drafted or signed a left tackle. Yeah, you would have signed Jonah Williams, or, it's not like they're left tackles just grow on trees. And then, I've heard people be like, well, you would have been so bad you could have drafted Joe Alt the next year. And it's like, okay, so you have Joe Alt
Couldn't they have drafted Joe Alt anyway?
I know. So it's just interesting to look at because whether or not people like it, whether or not people agree with it, the reality becomes the Texans with D'Amico Ryans obviously, became the head coach the same year as Jonathan Gannon. He's never won less than 10 games. Obviously, that first season was borderline special when they made a run into the divisional round. The next season they made another run into the divisional round, kind of shocked everybody by beating the Chargers, and then came back down to earth a little bit against the eventual AFC champion Kansas City Chiefs. But you look at it, Jess. That was the expectation, and maybe not, the best defense in the NFL, but that was the expectation with signing Jonathan Gannon, right? And that's why those that are looking at it and going, maybe they need to move on. Maybe that is a fair thing to say. That's where they stand on that, right? Just like you've got a guy that was not drafted, but signed in the same year. And people could say, oh, well, they have CJ Stroud. He's so much. Well, CJ Stroud's been the definition of average this year. He's 5-5, 12 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He's okay in all the other metrics. Davis Mills is 3-0, Jess, and he completes less than 60% of his passes. And they're 3-0 in his starts. Like when you build a side of the ball that wins football games, you don't have to worry about what the offense does. And that's just the reality. I mean, they have Nico Collins, who's going to put up over 1,000 yards, barring, an IR trip in the next week. And after that, their number 2 is Dalton Schultz, the tight end, who's, fine, 574 yards. And then from there, it's, just a mishmash of guys that are going to go for right around 500 yards on the season. Jaden Higgins, the rookie, Jalen Noel, old school Christian Kirk's only played in 9 games this year, has 204 yards. Their running backs, they brought in the bionic man, Nick Chubb. He's been fine. I mean, he doesn't do a whole lot recently. You look at it, just the last 5 games, he has 24 carries. Not
and he doesn't look like he's tracking to play this week either.
Right, and why would you? I mean, you don't need Nick Chubb against the Cardinals, but he also, like you said, hasn't been healthy. And so Woody Marks, something named Woody Marks, is their leading rusher. He's just a 4th round pick out of Mississippi State, went to USC after that. 4th round running back, Jess, doesn't really run particularly well. I mean, averages 3.5 yards a carry, averages 42 yards a game. He is a very dynamic player out of the backfield. I think we can both agree with that. Averages nearly 10 yards per reception. But I mean, he's a version of Michael Carter. I mean, a little bit bigger at 208, but kind of Michael Carter-ish. The run game's terrible. Their pass game is average at best, and they're 8-5. And like you said, Jess, they just beat the tar out of teams lately.
Yes, they have, and their offense is not that they do not wow you offensively. Doesn't this team look like how we feel like Jonathan Gannon wished the Cardinals did?
100%.
Great defensively, with just efficient enough offense to do the job. Because you look at the points, 20-10 over the Chiefs, 20-16 over the Colts, 23-19 over the Bills, 16-13 over the Titans. They scored 36 on Jacksonville, but they are methodical. If CJ Stroud is more or less doing what Kyler did last year, right? He's having an okay season. He's doing what he's coached to do, but he hasn't been the same quarterback he was his rookie year. Whether it was the shell shock from a year ago or simply making different decisions because the defense that they have this year is elite at every level, that he just he was so dynamic as a rookie and just kind of fell back. And he wasn't bad last year, and he hasn't been bad this year, but he hasn't been great. He's been a pretty good starting quarterback, which is, they're winning games.
Well, and again, I go back
the
to
fact that they go 3-0 with Davis Mills tells you something about that team overall. It's like, when Colt McCoy was winning games for the Cardinals.
Right. And you look at it, you mentioned that Jacksonville game, just they were down 29-10 and won 36-29. They scored 26 points in the fourth quarter. Davis Mills had 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. He passed for 2, ran for 1. So yeah, that was the anomaly of the game. But you mentioned it, Jess. The next week against Tennessee, they win 16-13. They beat the Bills 23-19. They beat the Colts 20-16. They beat the Chiefs and beat up the Chiefs 20-10. And by the way, that Colts and Chiefs, that Colts game and that Chiefs game on the road, they're just a physical, dominating football team. They have had games where they look borderline elite on offense, right, Jess? The Baltimore game, they won 44-10. That win over San Francisco, they put up 475 yards of offense. They won 26-15, but then they have games where they look, very pedestrian. That loss on Monday Night Football to the Seattle Seahawks, they only had 254 yards of offense. But you mentioned it, Jess, what they do and who they are is their defense. And outside of the first game or the second game this season, they haven't allowed over 350 yards of total offense the rest of the season. In fact, Jess, in
oh my gosh,
in 10 of their 13 games, they've allowed less than 300 yards of offense. In 6
of their last 7, of their last 7 as well. Jeez.
Yeah. So, they're playing at a physically elite level, Jess. And you look at it, offenses like the Colts and the Chiefs that are head and shoulders above the Cardinals, they're struggling to get to 275 yards of offense. And so it's one of those games where they don't need CJ Stroud to be 2023 CJ Stroud. They just need CJ Stroud to be the guy he's been this year, right? 200 yards and a touchdown should be more tthan enough. They don't need the guy that threw for 318, right, against San Francisco. They don't need the guy that threw for, had an 85% completion percentage for 244 yards and 4 touchdowns against the Ravens. Now, to be fair, that's probably what they're going to get because the Cardinals defense is so porous, but they don't need it. And so that's the thing is you look at it, they really don't need CJ Stroud to be anything more for them to win games. And that's probably what we're looking at again this week, is just do enough, turn around, hand the ball to Woody Marks, throw the ball, get Nico Collins his 85 yards to get over 1,000 for the season.
He's going for 150, right?
Well, yeah, but that's what I mean. He only needs 85, or technically 84 needs at 1,000. But and that's what this game's going to be. It's going to be a very workmanlike ho hum game for them on offense, because their defense is going to eat in this one.
Oh my gosh. Let's talk about this game coming up next on the Rise Up See Red podcast. Best of Cardinals talk on the web. Keys, matchups, the ones that matter. That's coming up next on Rise Up See Red. We're back on the Rise of Sea Red podcast, the best of Cardinals talk on the web, talking about Cardinals Texans this weekend in Houston. December in Houston. Keys to the game. We have reached the point that this is not about keys to victory. It's keys to not embarrassing the self. And I think number one, how are they going to avoid turning the ball over? Because this Texans team has forced at least one takeaway in 10 of their last 11 games and have multiple takeaways in 4 of their last 6 and 5 of their last 8 weeks. They are fearsome. And while Jacoby Brissett has done an okay job of protecting the football, and he's got that league record interception percentage for his career, the Cardinals will have exactly 0 chance if they turn the ball over even once this game.
Yeah, and you look at it, on the season, Jacoby, has only 5 interceptions, which is, right around his career average. But he is a bit careless with the ball in terms of fumbles. He's already got 4 on the season. Now, he's been better the last 4 weeks. He hasn't been as bad. But until last week, they really haven't played a defense that forces a lot of fumbles, right? And so I guess you can be happy he just threw an interception in the game and didn't really do much else. And so you look at it from that perspective. He can't turn the ball over, like you said. He's got to continue to protect the football, but he's been a little bit careless in terms of 9 turnovers on the season. And then the reality of the situation is he's got to get rid of the ball quick. He can't look and live for the big play, because it's just not going to happen this week. We talked about it off the air. There's been one guy that's thrown for over 250 yards against this team, Josh Allen. And as much as Jacoby's played well, he's not Josh Allen. So they're going to have to get the ball out quick. They're going to have to get the ball to Michael Wilson, Trey McBride. See how that goes.
It doesn't look like Marv's going to play this week again, or Max Melton,
and Paris is definitely out already.
Paris has already been ruled out. Evan Brown is not back from his personal absence, so he's missed 2 days of practice.
We all need personal days, Jess. Come on.
Well, we were talking before the show. Is this a case where, if whatever is happening with that in Evan Brown's life that's causing him to miss an entire week of the NFL season, that sucks. That might be serious. But at the same time, isn't this the time of year where you start wondering about vet guys? And if, for example, the conversation was had with Evan Brown to say, hey, we're going to give Gainsey some playing time, and Evan Brown's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go home. I don't want to say that's happened, but the way this season is going, the way the season is going, I wouldn't put it past the Cardinals of taking their one of two starting linemen left and to say, we're going in a different direction, kind of like how Owen Papo quietly played the entire game instead of King Davis Gaither last week. Yeah, I mean, most personal things, say it was a baby, because we don't usually know until like afterwards, and Evan would have been back by Monday or Tuesday. He was not back on Wednesday, not back on Thursday. And so if it's something tragic that's been happening in his life, well, then that's awful, and he needs to take the time that he is. But there is nothing, like, we're at a point in the season we don't trust anything about what the Cardinals are doing, and so wouldn't be surprised by any nonsense that it might be.
Correct. And you look at this week and they just, what are the matchups that matter? Well, can the Cardinals block the Texans? The answer is no. I mean, I like Kelvin Beachum. He's a nice guy. He's a swell fellow. He's not going to stop Daniel Hunter and Will Anderson, right? And then across from them, it'll be Josh Fryer. And so you look at it and you go, okay, well, Godspeed Jacoby. And then it gets worse. And there are, I mean, obviously you never root for injuries because it's just bad business. But, there are some things you look at. Sheldon Rankins has been dealing with an elbow issue. Maybe they don't need him this week. Wouldn't shock anybody, right? As we talked about Al-Shaair. He hasn't practiced. Maybe he doesn't play this week. Those both would be massive benefits to the Cardinals. I don't think it swings the game in any way, shape, or form, but it would definitely give the Cardinals more of a fighting chance. If they're able to they don't have to face Al-Shaair and Sheldon Rankins. And let's be honest, Jess, there's also the reality that there could just be teams that are like, these guys are a little nicked up. We're playing the Cardinals. We're not going to force this guy back out here. Like, who cares? Like, it's the Cardinals, right? So
what do we need for the Cardinals to do? Like, can we say they need to run the ball? But, I mean, it hasn't mattered. Kansas City rushed for 126 and Buffalo rushed for 143, and they still didn't, like, Kansas City scored 10, Buffalo scored 19, and the Cardinals don't even run the ball. So, like,
yeah, I mean, that's what the difficulty is nobody's thrown the ball effectively on this team all year. Like, it's just the reality of the situation. Nobody's thrown the ball effectively. I mean, you go back to the Rams game 1, where the Rams won 14-9 in a barn burner, and the Rams had 296 total yards on offense. Matthew Stafford in that game, he went for 245 and a touchdown. Like, that's been the best game of the season against the Texans.
And that's this year's possible MVP as a result.
Right. And so, you look at it and that's kind of what has to happen is you have to have an efficient, because here's the thing. He threw the ball 29 times in that game. Jacoby's never thrown the ball that little ever this season. And so they have to be efficient. It can't be a game where Jacoby drops back, 55 times, throws the ball 48, scrambles 4, and gets sacked 3. Like, that's not going to work out. They're going to lose by 60. Okay, maybe not 60, maybe 35. But
it's, oh man.
But like,
I'm legitimately worried about the health of Jacoby Brissett. Like, how is he going to get through this game? Because if we have to say the name Keaton Slovis at quarterback or include that in our game summary, there is no shot in it. Like, and I'll joke about this, but the 2 snaps that Keaton Slovis had when against Jacksonville, in fact, the very first when Jacoby got hit and he had to leave the game, for a couple of plays. That very first play, they didn't even trust Keaton Slovis to hand the ball off. They had a direct snap to Greg Dortch. I thought that was one of the most, like, when you get a backup in this, they always do a handoff. They didn't even let him handle the ball. So imagine if he has to play because Jacoby gets hurt. That I don't even know. But matchups, obviously, we're going to look at the tackles against the elite pass rushers. Will Johnson against Nico Collins. See how that goes.
Well, and you look at it, Jess, there's a couple other things. I mean, you mentioned Jacoby, right? Here's a reality that's crazy, and we'll talk about the props in a little bit, but this is super interesting in the matchups. His over-under for passing is 234.5. Jess, he hasn't thrown for less than 258 yards in a start. His over-under is 24 yards less than his lowest total on the season because the matchup is so astronomically difficult for them. You look at their coverage and their cover corners. Kamari Lassiter and Derek Stingley Jr. are, the elite of the elite in terms of cornerback play on the season. And then we mentioned Jalen Petrie earlier. He has been, insane this year. And then their other safety, in terms of Kalen Bullock, he's kind of the enforcer. And so you look at their secondary and you look at what they've done to all passers. Again, the high this year in passing yards was 253 by Josh Allen. This Houston defense, because of their coverage abilities, and then the fact that they have two elite pass rushers in Daniel Hunter and Will Anderson, are matchup nightmares for the Cardinals. Again, the one thing that could help is if Rankins is gone, because he brings that interior pressure that they don't really have without him. You look at their numbers on the season. He's played in every game. He has 26 hurries on the season. Their next guy in terms of defense in interiors at 16. So he's the guy that brings the pressure on the interior, while obviously Anderson and Daniel Hunter are the guys on the outside. The other thing is how do they control Al-Shaair? That's a legitimate question. He leads the Texans in tackles, Jess. He's a decent cover guy, but what he is he's an enforcer. He's a throwback in terms of
borderline dirty is the reputation.
And
borderline.
And you look at the guys that he is taken out, and I hate saying stuff like this, but if Al-Shaair plays, can Trey McBride, because that's who will be on him, can McBride stay healthy? Like, that's a legitimate question that you have to ask with Al-Shaair covering him, because it's not a question of he's decent in coverage. He's not great. He's allowed 35 catches for 282 yards on the season. He's got one interception. But he's going to take shots on McBride from his linebacker position and take some liberties with how he plays. That's why, not because I'm like, oh, it'll help the Cardinals win the game. He could not play, and I still wouldn't pick him to win. But I don't want to watch a promising young player like Trey McBride get hurt this late in a garbage throwaway season when he's on pace for a record-setting season from the tight end position. I don't want to see him get hurt in a game like this. Like, it's just it as much as it sucks to say something like this, it's not that important. And so that's one of the matchups I'm watching because, again, Petrie is going to be on him. Alshire is going to be on him. They're going to throw different guys to try to mitigate what Trey does. That's going to be something to watch because I want him to get through this game healthy because I really do. I mean, it really is a concern. On the flip side, Jess, on offense, how do you slow down something that's not great, right? Obviously, the biggest thing's going to be Nico, right? You gotta contain Nico Collins. Again, he's right on pace for 1,000 yards. The way they played Puka last week, if they play Nico the same, I know they're not the same receivers, and the usage isn't the same, but if you play him in a similar manner, he's going to put up similar numbers. And you joked about it, but you were slightly joking and slightly serious in what you were saying, right? Like
he could go for 150, man.
And so how do you slow him down? Because he's really the only guy, right? I mean, we talked about Dalton Schultz he'll get you 50 yards, not even really 50, like 45 yards, Woody Marks is going to get you 43 yards in the game. Jalen Noel is going to get you 40, but Nico Collins is going to get you 80 plus. So how do you control Nico Collins and make him hard to beat? And the reality becomes you have to, somebody else has to beat you. Whether it is Woody Marks, whether it is Jaden Higgins, Jalen Noel, one of these guys has to beat you. You cannot let Nico Collins beat you. Because if Nico Collins beats you, I mean, we talked about it last week, right? Like we knew that Kyron Williams and Blake Corum were going to run wild. Like we knew that. And then there wasn't much you could do about it. But it's worse when it just happens, right? Like you're like, these are the guys that are going to beat us. And then the three guys on offense, they're like, hey, we got to slow them down. It's like, no, those guys have like massive games. That's frustrating. And so like if Nico Collins, to your, joking but serious point, comes out and puts up 150 yards, at that point, you got to start, and we've already started, but you've got to question Rallis. Like, what are you doing, bro? Like, make anybody else beat you. Let Noel or Higgins go for 120 yards. Make one of those other guys beat you. But if Nico Collins goes for 150 yards, and don't get me wrong, Nico Collins is a very, very good player. But if Nico Collins goes for 150 yards, that's just you being stubborn and being like, well, we're not going to change and scheme our defense for one specific guy. Well, that one specific guy just toasted you for 150 yards last week in Puka Nacua and 2 touchdowns.
And they rushed for 250 yards almost.
Oh. Right. So it's like at some point you have to start scheming to to make somebody else beat you. And when you look at the Houston offense, nobody is outside of Nico Collins, nobody is jumping off the page, right? Like nobody's had this year where you're just like, damn, this guy's killing it, other than Nico Collins. So don't let Nico Collins beat you. Like, I know it sounds simple, but like, again, just anybody else, and you'll be like, all right, I'll live with that. But if it's Nico Collins, you're like, what are we doing?
Yeah. Man, coming up next on the Rise of Zero podcast, Best of Cardinals Talk of the Weather. Let's talk about our predictions, picks, predictions, and the prop bets that'll make you a little bit of money. That's coming up next on Rise of Zero Red. We're back on the Rise of Zero podcast, Best of Cardinals Talk on the Web. Time to make our predictions for this game. Needless to say, there is little hope we have, and let's look at what the betting public says. 96% of the money line back the Texans, which is no surprise. And even with a 9.5 point spread, 9.5, guys, that's huge. 73% still back the Texans, and I am 100% on board with that. I do not think. Now, what's always the danger in one of these games is that the Texans play a mucky game offensively. But the Cardinals don't show the ability to slow guys down. Like Tampa, and we just saw Tampa lose to the Falcons. Their season is fading very quickly. And the Cardinals play the Falcons next week. They just put Kirk Cousins just threw 3 touchdown passes. So yeah, that's what's coming up next week. I expect this game to be where the Cardinals, if they get to double digits, they'll be lucky. If they score 2 touchdowns, I'd be shocked. My prediction for this game is a methodical 27-10 game, and I bet there's a defensive score. Otherwise, it would be 20-10, very boring, but barely covering. But I think there will be a defensive score in there because I don't think the Cardinals will be able to hold on to the ball the entire game. So 27-10 Texans, and in the Cardinals, if they score points, good on them because their offense is no match for this defense.
It's really not. And so we'll see how that goes. You look at overall this season and what they've done. And the question becomes that 42.5 for me, because I'm with you, Jess. There's no way. I just don't see a way the Cardinals cover that 9.5, excuse me. So it's the 42.5. And the fact that the money's starting to move to the over is really interesting because you can break these things down. So you go, at least on FanDuel. I'm sure you can on BetMGM as well, but the money on FanDuel is starting to move to the over. But the money on FanDuel is on the Cardinals under 16.5, meaning that people are thinking that the Texans score more than 26, just like Jess. And the fact that it's going over 42.5 to the sharps is what is getting me, because it's like, okay, you think the Cardinals maybe score 13, like maybe they get a touchdown and 2 field goals. So are people really thinking that the Texans put up 35 points? I would have a much easier time betting that over if I had seen anything in recent weeks outside of that fluky Jacksonville game where they put up points. But in the last 4 games, Jess, they're averaging 21 points a game. It's not like the Texans are torching teams. And in fact, Jess, since their bye week, they've only scored over 30 points one time. They've only scored over that 26.5 mark one time. And that was, again, where they had 26 points in a quarter. So it's really hard for me to see why the money is going on the over right now. All that being said, I'm kind of with you. I think 28-10. I could even see like a 31-10, but which would get you close. But yeah, 28-10 Texans over the Cardinals. And I'm really interested why. But I mean, Vegas makes money because of things like that, right? Like all those casinos didn't pay for themselves. We did. And so that'll be what's interesting to kind of watch. We mentioned the passing yards, right? Jacoby's line's at 234.5. He's never thrown as a starter for less than 258. Is this the week?
I would guess. I mean, I don't know. There are a lot of empty yards that they could have late in the game with Michael Wilson and Trey McBride. And I wonder if the coverage of Wilson is going to change to where they start rolling coverage his way. Because my guess, I haven't looked at this, but teams defend Marvin Harrison Jr. differently than they defend Michael Wilson. And yeah, here's the other thing. Is he going to play the whole game to be able to get that anyway? There's no defensive props, but how many times are you going to get hit? This is one of those games where it might be a 7-sack, 13-hit game, and he has to come out sometime in the second half. So there's no chance he'd hit the over.
Well, and that begs the question, if the money is on Houston, obviously to cover, the money's on the over, but the Cardinals under, are they thinking Jacoby doesn't make it through the game? Like, is that kind of because even in the Seattle and San Francisco games where they were down 5 scores, it was still the Jacoby show, right? Like a lot of teams, let's be honest, most teams in those situations will go to the next guy. So it's interesting that the 234.5, because that's the lowest amount on the season. And then you look at it too, pass completions, his over unders at 22.5.
That's like, and then when you go to attempts, it's 38.5. I'm like, you'd think he'd be over that. I don't know. Like, are they going to run enough? Like, are they going to run enough plays? Because that's the one thing is like, if they're getting shut down and shut down and shut down, they just simply won't have the number of plays to get to 40 passing attempts / the number of times he has to scramble or get sacked to, if he drops back 45 times. But I don't know this. I'm trying. I don't love any of the passing props for this game.
What do you think about McBride's over? It's at 6.5, and the money's on him to have more than 6.5 catches, which is kind of wild to me.
I don't know. Like here's one I like, and that's Jalen Noel for over 1.5 receptions, and because you get plus 130. My favorite props are the ones that are you only need a little bit to get some plus money. And Michael Wilson over 4.5 at minus 155. Like, I mean, that makes you not want to bet it. I'm like, that's an easy bet. Like, why didn't they put it up at,
But that's the thing. So they go to 5.5 and it's plus money. So like they don't see it this week. They don't see it with Wilson this week. And what's really interesting about the Wilson situation is that we talked about it when he's being forced the ball like that. It's a lot of catch and tackles, right? Like it's a lot of 50-50 balls. It's a lot of athletic, impressive plays from Wilson. So the question becomes, if he's getting those, if he's going to hit the over, right? So 5+, you feel like he's going to hit the yards then, which is 61.5, right? Like it doesn't seem like it would be possible that he'd have 5 or 6 catches for less than 60 yards. Because as he's been the guy in these 3 games, he's averaging 12+ yards per reception. And what's more impressive, Jess, is he's averaging over 8 yards per target. So, right around 8.5 yards per target. So if they give him, because he's never had less than 15 as the man. So let's just cut that down, like you said, less possessions, less success, to 12. Even at his worst, which is 8 yards per target, that's still 96 yards. Like the 61.5 is another thing. So like you said, they're feeling froggy with this Cardinals offense having been so productive in terms of yards that they think that they're like, these numbers are going to get a lot of people to hit the over, which is always what makes me nervous, right? Like when they set a fishy line like that, where it just seems like it doesn't make sense, you like, it's your money, obviously, but from Jess and I's perspective, 61.5, I don't love it. And the reason why I don't love it is, why is that the line? It makes no sense. In all 3 games where he's been without Marvin Harrison Jr., he's averaging 130 or 145 yards per game. And they're setting the line at 61.5. Like, it just, that stinks. Like, there's something that we're not seeing out of that. Would you not agree?
Yeah, it's almost like this is where they turn into a pumpkin this week, right?
And
the passing game.
Yeah, and to be fair, that wouldn't be shocking, right? This is the best defense in the NFL. Like,
this could be a 27-0 game. It really could. They could be that bad.
100%, Jess. 100%. This could be the game where people go, "Oh, I'm not sure about Jacoby." Like, maybe we're off on this one, right? Maybe Michael Wilson is not Randy Moss or Jerry Rice, whoever the comp is, when he doesn't have Kyler, or sorry, when he doesn't have Marv there. So that's, kind of what you look at from that. But yeah, man, this is a tough one because you don't see any positives where they're going to win this game. And so the most impressive thing would be just if they won the game. Like, even if it was the ugliest game ever, if they won this game, it would be shocking.
It would be. I do like, give me the alternate receiving yards, 100 plus for Nico Collins at plus 200. Just give it to me.
Yeah. I would agree with that. So how many receptions are you thinking? Is he going to go over because they have his over under at 5.5. So you think, which is plus money on FanDuel. So you think he's going to go over that then?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So it's plus 210 on FanDuel for 100 plus yards. So
okay, FanDuel guys, you get plus odds on the receptions and on the 100 plus. That's good.
Yeah, and that's one where you could, you can even fire those as a small parlay, right? Like, you get that at plus 235 combined. So you get even a little more juice if you really like Nico in this one. Does Jacoby get 2 passing touchdowns? I know you and I say no, but the fact that that's plus 200 is legitimately wild, because there's no way that they score 2 touchdowns unless it's through the air, right?
Yeah. Well, and here's the other one: minus 165 that he throws a pick.
I know, that's crazy numbers. That's crazy. It's crazy to think this is the first time in a long time, Jess, that I've seen anytime touchdown numbers. And obviously I'm talking for the Cardinals, not for the Texans, like they used to be back when FanDuel first started, because Michael Wilson's plus 210 anytime touchdown. Bam Knight's like plus 250. When was the last time the lead running back was plus 250 to score? It doesn't happen anymore, right?
No,
it
doesn't.
So that's the thing, is like, McBride's the highest at plus 1, or the lowest, I guess, technically, at plus 160 for the anytime touchdown scores. Like, that is that's a wild number for McBride. Just based on what he's done this year, what he's been able to do. This is a game where all the lines for the Cardinals, on the Cardinal side of things, are really, really fishy. And so they're either going to go broke in this one because people are going to hammer the overs on Jacoby, Michael Wilson, Trey McBride, because they've been hitting almost every week. Now, McBride didn't do great last week, but he was under all of his numbers that he's at, his lines this week. But this just feels like a bait week, where they're setting these lines lower than what we're used to seeing. And I think they're just going to make a ton of money on people going like, oh, Jacoby's throwing for over 234.5 yards every week. Why wouldn't I bet more? Why would I bet that to hit? And then they're like, thanks, appreciate the donation. So
here's the thing: a defensive touchdown by Houston, like, It's only plus 550.
Yeah, that's.
I say I make that bet, guys. But aren't those usually like plus 700 and more and above?
Yeah. Usually, if you get them under 750, it's you're like, what? Like, and so that's what I'm saying, man. This is like the Cardinals don't have a a 2+ touchdown scorer under plus 1,000. Like McBride's plus 1,300 to score 2 touchdowns, which is again an absurd number. Like it's, and then they basically like said the chances of any Cardinals player scoring 3 touchdowns is like landing on the moon. So, this is a week where it's really hard to see any success for the Cardinals because the lines just they're baiting you. They're daring you to be like, hey, take this line. Yeah, Jacoby's over-under's a little fishy. Yeah, Michael Wilson's over-under's a little fishy. Why wouldn't you bet it? Why wouldn't you bet him to get over 61.5 yards? He's averaging 145 yards without Marvin Harrison. Come on, 61.5. That's nothing.
Yeah, this is sorry, guys. If you're looking for hope, we normally provide a little bit of hope for this on this show, on this podcast, where we have now at 728 episodes, and guess what? There is none. Sorry, guys. But yeah,
sad.
But make some money. Make some money on some little bets. I like rushing. They don't even have
Nope.
anything for Bam Knight. Nothing.
No. By the way, if and when you get sack props, absolutely hammer Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson both have sacks. 100.
Here, give me this one. Jacoby Brissett over 2.5 rushing attempts.
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely.
All right. Yeah. So with that, we will wrap up this edition of the Rise Up Seared podcast, the best of Cardinals talk. We've got one more show later this week with Cade Thompson over the Texans wire, as we'll have an opponent preview. But until then, Seth and I will be back next week talking about what hopefully isn't too much of a disaster. But until then, that's Seth Cox. I'm Jess Reed. Thanks for listening. As always, we'll be back again soon.
Thanks for listening to the latest edition of the Rise Up See Red podcast. Listen to previous episodes and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Audioboom, or many other podcast platforms so shows are delivered directly to your mobile device. Please give the show a 5-star rating and always support the sponsors who support the show. We'll be back soon for the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Rise up, Red Sea, be Red, See Red, and of course, Rise Up, See Red.